Stand with your feet 4 to 5 inches apart, parallel to each other, pointing straight ahead. Curl the tips of your fingers down so that the first knuckles are bent and the tips of the fingers are touching the top of the palms, with the palms still open and your thumbs pointed out. Bring your arms straight up to your sides and bring your shoulder blades back together. With your elbows completely locked straight, palms facing down and thumbs pointed forward, perform quick forward circles about 5 to 6 inches in diameter. As you're doing this, make sure that your stomach muscles remain relaxed the entire duration of this movement. Keep your shoulder blades pinched together and do not allow your elbows to bend. Once you've performed the recommended amount of repetitions, rotate so that your palms are face up and your thumbs are pointed back behind you. Then continue to do backwards circles, keeping the elbows as straight as possible and the shoulder blades back together. You might notice that your body swings back and forth slightly in sort of a pendulum motion, and that's okay. Balance and symmetry check. Pay attention to the differences in your shoulder blades as you pinch your shoulders back together and you perform the circles. Do you feel a difference in one shoulder versus the other, or one shoulder blade versus the other? Do you feel like when you bring your arms up, you feel the muscles of your neck working more than the muscles of your upper back or your shoulders? Do you feel it more on one side than the other? Pay attention to how this changes over time as you continue doing the movement and the program. This should begin to even out. Stand with your feet 4 to 5 inches apart, parallel to each other and pointed straight ahead. Curl the tips of your fingers at the first knuckle so the fingertips touch the top of the palms and the palms remain open, with your thumbs pointed out. Bring your knuckles up to the sides of your head by the temples of your head, with your palms facing in front of you and your thumbs pointed down. Bring your elbows together in front of you to touch in front of your face, attempting to keep the elbows at shoulder level and not allowing them to drop lower. Then bring them back all the way to your sides as far back as they can go. Try to keep the shoulders from elevating as you're going through the movement. So there's a combination between keeping your shoulders down and your elbows high. Make sure you keep your stomach muscles completely relaxed through this position. Balance and symmetry check. Do you notice a difference in how one shoulder or one shoulder blade works in comparison to the other? Do you feel like as you're moving the elbows in towards each other and out, that one moves maybe at a different speed than the other? This is asymmetry showing up in how your shoulders function together and should even out over time. Do you also notice that as you bring your elbows closer together or back, that your back tends to want to arch or your shoulders rise up? These are also methods of compensation happening for a lack of use or function at the shoulders and should change over time. Stand with your heels, butt, and upper back against an open wall, with your feet pointed straight ahead about 4 to 5 inches apart from each other. Bring your arms out to your sides at shoulder level with your palms facing away from the wall, arms and the back of the hands touching the wall. With your stomach muscles completely relaxed, bend at the waist so your upper body slides against the wall towards one side. Keep both sides of the hips touching the wall as well as your shoulders and arms. Try not to let your arms move. Rather, make sure it's the trunk that's moving and you're bending at your side, keeping your hips in the exact same place. Bend from side to side, sliding against the wall. Once you've done the recommended amount of repetitions on both sides, you're going to widen your stance so that your feet are approximately 1.5 feet apart. You're going to repeat the exact same movement, making sure that the feet are pointed straight, that the hips do not slide from side to side, and the weight is even on both feet, and you're bending from the trunk. After you've done this second position, you're going to widen further from 2 to 2.5 feet apart. Continue the movement again for the recommended amount of repetitions. Once you've done this, you're going to go back to the original stance at hip width apart and finish with the same amount of recommended repetitions. Remember, as you're bending from side to side, that your stomach muscles are going to want to tense up as you're going through the bend. Try to keep these as relaxed as possible. Balance and symmetry check. Pay special attention to any differences that you feel from the right side of your body to the left. Do you bend further on one side than the other? You might notice that you feel different parts of your body as you're going through the bend. Take notes of whatever things become apparent to you. As always, these are asymmetries showing up in the body and should even out over time. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, pointed straight ahead, parallel to each other. Put a block or a pillow between your knees. Make sure that the block or the pillow is between 4 to 6 inches in diameter, and that the block or the pillow is firm enough so that when you press in against it, it doesn't have the ability to actually squish in. Bring your arms out to your sides at a 45-degree angle from your body with your palms face up. Using about half of your strength, squeeze your knees inward into the block and then release, on and off. You should feel the work in the muscles on the insides of your legs as well as the hip flexors. Balance and symmetry check. Do you feel muscles working in one side of the body that are not working the same in the other side of the body? Do you feel like one leg is pushing into the block or the pillow firmer than the other leg? Or do you feel like the timing of how they press into the block is off? Either way, take notes and recognize that this should change and become more symmetrical from left to right as time goes on. Maintain a constant inward pressure on the block or the pillow throughout the position. Make sure that the block or the pillow is between 4 to 6 inches in diameter and it's firm, so when you press into it, it doesn't actually have any give. Place your elbows straight out to your sides, where your elbows are just about at shoulder height. You're going to bend your arms so that your hands go up towards the ceiling, and you now have a 90-degree angle at the elbows and at the shoulders. Squeeze or glide your shoulder blades together gently, and then relax. In order to help you with this movement, you can press your elbows lightly into the ground every time you glide your shoulder blades together. You should only be doing this movement using about half of your strength. Balance and symmetry check. Take notes and pay attention to the differences in how one shoulder blade moves versus the other. Do you notice other parts of your back that are affected every time you do the press? Do you find it easy or difficult to get your shoulder blades to glide back together? As always, these are asymmetries showing up and should even out over time. Place a strap around your legs just above your knees. The strap should allow 4 to 6 inches of space between your knees and should be a firm strap. There shouldn't be any give or elasticity to the strap. Place your arms out to your sides at a 45-degree angle from your body, palms face up. Press your knees out into the strap on and off, using about 50% of your overall strength. Balance and symmetry check. Pay special attention to any differences in how the pressing feels in terms of what muscles are working from left side to right side. Do you find it easier to press one leg into the strap than the other leg? These are all asymmetries showing up and should even out over time. Press and hold your knees out against the strap for the duration of this position. Bring your elbows straight out to your sides. Your elbows should be in line with your shoulders. You're going to then rotate your arms so the forearms and the hands are pointed straight up at the ceiling. There should now be a 90-degree angle at the shoulders and the elbows. Allow your hands to move into a relaxed fist. While keeping pressure on the strap, press your elbows lightly into the ground. Allow your shoulder blades to squeeze together. Make sure you're not just pressing your elbows and that your shoulder blades are actually squeezing together. Repeat this movement on and off for the recommended amount of repetitions. Balance and symmetry check. Pay attention to any differences between how one shoulder or one of your shoulder blades move compared to the other. Also pay attention to what muscles are working while you're pressing out into the strap. Take note of any asymmetries that you notice and recognize that these will change over time. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart and pointed straight ahead. Place the bottom soles of the feet together and allow your knees to relax and drop out to the sides. At first, try to keep your feet as close to your hips as possible. If they start to slide away from you, just allow them to go wherever they comfortably slide to and then leave them there. Your knees are going to drop out to the sides and everything in your body should be relaxed. As your knees drop out to the sides, you might notice that there is an arch, a slight arch, in your lower back. That is okay. Your arms should be just out to your sides with your palms face up at a 45-degree angle from your body. Relax completely in this position for the recommended amount of time. Balance and symmetry check. Do you notice a difference in how far one leg moves than the other? Is one knee closer to the floor than the other? You might feel a stretch or some kind of sensation in the muscles of the hip on one leg that's different than the ones on the other. Of course, these are asymmetries showing up and should even out over time. From here, you're going to interlace your hands together, making sure that your palms are completely together, and straighten your elbows out so that your arms are straight and they're pointed directly over your sternum. Keep your elbows completely locked and straight and allow your arms to move over your head in the direction of the floor. You're going to let them go as far as they can go where you do not have to apply any effort in order to get them to go further. As soon as you feel like you need to apply effort, stop and go back up towards your chest. You're going to move back and forth between these 2 points. Also, if you notice that your back arches more as you're bringing your arms over your head, stop as soon as you feel it start to arch and then make that your new point. Remember to keep your elbows locked the entire duration of this position and your legs completely relaxed. Balance and symmetry check. Pay attention to the differences in how your legs or your hips feel from one side to the other. You might notice that one knee drops closer to the floor than the other side. Also pay attention to the differences in how your shoulder blades move from one to the other. How close can you get your hands to the floor without having any kind of effort or any additional arching in your back? All these are asymmetry showing up in the body and should improve over time. Start on your hands and your knees. Your knees should be directly below your hips and your hands should be directly below your shoulders. You're going to initiate the motion from your hips. Start by tucking your pelvis underneath, allowing your pelvis and your lower back to round. Then, imagine going vertebra by vertebra. You're going to start rounding every part of your back, from the lower back to the mid back to the upper back, and then allow the head to collapse down towards the floor. From here, you're going to start going into extension by tipping your pelvis forward using the muscles of the front of the hips. Now, the goal here is to try to keep the rest of the back and the head in flexion as you tip the pelvis forward by itself as much as it can go. When you realize it can't go any further, you're going to start arching the lower back, then the mid back, then the upper back. As you get to the upper back, you're going to allow the shoulder blades to collapse together, keeping your elbows as locked as possible. Once you've gotten to that point, then your head and neck are going to be looking up. You'll now be in full extension. You're going to go back and forth between the movements, initiating the movement from your pelvis and then finishing the movement from the head. Try to prevent yourself from shifting back and forward, meaning keep your pelvis over your knees and keep your shoulders over your hands. Remember to breathe throughout this entire position. Balance and symmetry check. Pay attention to the differences between how one side of the body feels versus the other. Take notes of different things that stand out. Also pay attention to how difficult it is to move the body from one segment to the other. This tells you a lot about the relationship between the pelvis, the hips, and the shoulders. As this gets better over time, This segmentation should get easier. Place your back against a wall and keep your feet and knees about 6 inches apart. From here, you're going to walk away from the wall until you can allow yourself to slide down and put yourself in a seated position where you are about just over a 90-degree angle at the hips as well as the knees. The goal here is to have your mid-back, lower back, and hips completely flush against the wall. It's almost as though you're going to have a small slouch in your back and your posture in order to make this happen. Your head and shoulders will slightly come off the wall. Keep all of the pressure in your heels, relax your stomach, put your palms face up on your lap, and make sure that you do not use your upper body or shoulders at any point in this position. Keeping the pressure in your heels, you're going to hold this for the recommended amount of time. If you feel like a lot of the work is going into your knees, you can come up slightly until you don't feel the work in your knees anymore. You should feel the work in the upper thigh muscles, the quadriceps. Balance and symmetry check. Do you feel like both legs are working evenly, or do you feel like one leg is pushing into the ground or the wall more than the other? Take note in how even it feels where your back and hips are up against the wall. You might feel like it's not symmetrical from left to right, like certain parts of your back or your hips are touching the wall more than other parts. One thing that you can do if this is happening is to place a yoga block or some type of firm pillow between your knees where you're not necessarily going to squeeze it, but allow your knees to press into it, just enough to hold it, and see if that makes things even out. Over time, it should even out as things become more symmetrical.